I've had to go a little bit around the houses to find out something about Harry. And I thought the route that I'd go is actually, people know this term? Nominative determinism. This is where your name dictates what job you do. And we'll see why this relates to Barry shortly. But just to show you some examples of it. Anybody know this French weather forecaster? This is the rainy day. This is, you won't even believe this is actually true. He died a few years ago, but the Archbishop of Manila, anybody know his name? It's crazy, isn't it? How can that be the case? And I think that nominative determinism relates to anagrams as well. And the most famous of them all is Virginia Bottomley. Most people know that. Do you know that one? I'm an evil Tory bigot is an actual anagram of Virginia Bottomley. This one. This is real as well. This is from the British Journal of Urology, which is all about incontinence. Look it up, it's genuine. They are professors of incontinence. But it brings us on to Barry Yates. And any of you who are good at anagrams, given that this is the man who has spent his life saving the wildlife of Rye Bay, wasn't it? Ladies and gentlemen, Barry Yates.
Sorry, I'm a bit picky about my photos. So, you've all been to Rye Harbour, haven't you? Hands up who's never been to Rye Harbour Nature Reserve. Shame on you. You can get a train. And it's only a short walk from the station. So I hope that those 2 or 3 who've never been, that I will encourage you to visit. So it's a big topic, birds at Rye Harbour Nature Reserve, and I've only got a relatively few minutes. And I'll keep a watch. So I'm not going to cover birds at Rye Harbour Nature Reserve. I'm going to concentrate on the breeding birds, because to me they are the most important things. So Rye Harbour is a very special place for birds, and we know that because it's got lots of designations, and they all mean it's very special. And don't try and make the letters of Ramsar mean anything. It's a city in Iran that many years ago decided that it was worth saving wetlands, and Rye Harbour is part of a Ramsar site. Rye Harbour is also special because it's part of a much larger special protection area. Now, the green there is the Dungeness, Romney Marsh and Rye Bay tributary side, and sadly there's a county boundary, and sometimes it's a barrier that people dare not cross. So there's Rye Harbour. Now a nature reserve of the Sussex Wildlife Trust. You can count these, Chris. How many times I get the Sussex Wildlife Trust in and talk. There's also other interesting wildlife sites around, bird sites around. How many of you have never been to the Pamel Valley Nature Reserve? There's a few, quite a lot more. Well, my suggestion to you is don't go at the moment because it's very muddy. And it's difficult to get to anywhere. And that's where I'm now spending much more of my time. I've defected. And there we are. Who's never been to the Dungeness RSPB Reserve? 3. Adrian? There's 3 people here that haven't been. You should direct them. So there's lots of good places for birds in the general area, and that is helping to make Rye Harbour so good and the best. But Rye Harbour is it's a heavily modified landscape. It's been damaged by man repeatedly. Gravel extraction, military activity, chemical industry. Can you all read? I'll just read this out. Recreational activity, apple farming, picture on the right, intensive sheep grazing. Is there no end to this? Invasive non-native species. I think that's it. And there are parts on the sea defences. Let's not forget the sea defences. So the sea defences are the primary function of that piece of land, this Rye Harbour Nature Reserve. The private agency transport massive amounts of shingle to try and protect the coastline, and it seems like complete madness. But if you visit this time of year, you might encounter all of the trucks, and it's done to keep the pet sea wall covered in shingle, to make it strong, and it keeps the harbour of Rye open for navigation. Don't worry, we're going to get some birds soon. So there's the nature reserve. The southern part is all about saltwater habitats, and the northern section is all about freshwater habitats. And if you were to try and summarise it in just a few words, that's what Rye Harbour Nature Reserve is. It's been in existence for more than 50 years. It's the size of 600 football pitches. It's got a lot of species, and many of those species have got conservation status. Some of them are birds. If you look down the bottom, the estimate for visitors is 400,000, which to me is a staggering number. But most of them are only in one tiny section of it, and you can go on a walk and be away from people, especially if the weather's a bit rough. And the nature reserve was set up as a local nature reserve, and it has a management committee. So all these organisations are important to the success of the reserve. And it's been a real partnership over many years, including some landowners down at the bottom there, the Languish farmers. They've been important to the success of the reserve. So here we are. Here's a bird's eye view of Ternary Pool. This was the only place to go bird watching at Rye Harbour for many, many years. And it had a few terns. So now there's lots of facilities. There's 4 bird watching hides and the relatively new Discovery Centre. And then there's this large area of saltwas, which I hope we'll have time to talk about in detail a bit later. And there's the features again. So it's a proper wetland these days. And in the northern section there's Castle Water, which is, as I said earlier, very, very fresh water. And you've got Camp Castle, the Halpin Hide, and the Reed Bed viewpoint. Big note here, the viewpoint at Castle Water is closed at the moment. So you can't see the spectacular starling murmuration from the best viewpoint. But if you visit in the evening, there's about 10 or 20,000 starlings roosting there at the moment. So Rye Harbour has 5 special habitats, priority habitats, habitats that are uncommon. Reed bed, wet grassland, saline lagoon and salt marsh. But the most important habitat is the vegetated shingle, where there's lots of specialised birds are going to nest there. But let's not forget that birds are not the prime wildlife interest of the nature reserve. And invertebrates win hands down. Beetles are always going to win, nearly 1,000 species. But birds, it's pathetic. Only 303 species recorded. And a lot of effort has been put into trying to identify and manage the very rare invertebrates that live right Harbour. So the wildlife headline is all these species. These are the bird headlines. There's 101 different species of birds that breed at the nature reserve. So 3 species of terns, 6 gulls, 8 waders, 8 ducks, 10 warblers. Can you name them all? No, no, please no. But is there anywhere else that's got that diversity? Not in Sussex. Or perhaps in Sussex. You're going to argue? Come on, argue. And the little tern has always been the logo associated with the nature reserve. And that's a very dodgy thing to do. Don't pick a difficult species as your logo, because sooner or later you have to change it. But at the moment, the little tern is still hanging on. So the start of the nature reserve the Sussex Wildlife Society was very important in the establishment of Rye Harbour Nature Reserve and Hamilton Harbour. I am just writing the history of Rye Harbour, and the SOS gets a prominent position in the history. And I heard today that Tony Marr is not too well. And he wrote, in 1995, Tony wrote a lovely short account of how the nature reserve developed, or how it started in the 1960s. So I shall be using Tony's words. So this was Dave Flum, who was born 1970, was part-time, and he lived in Watch Cottage in the summer. And as it turned out, I spent most of my working life living in Watch Cottage, an idyllic location in the centre of what is now the reserve. I'm just trying to think if any of these people are in the room. I don't think they are. Oh, Pat, you're in the room. Which one are you, Pat?
Second to the right.
He's here.
This one here? Is that you, Pat? Anyway, the SOS had regular work parties, but they were held at Easter. My rule of thumb now is don't disturb the islands where the birds are going to nest after the 1st of March. So it was criminal. Pat, you were disturbing the breeding birds. And the very first bird watching hive was built by Jack McTeer. Anybody remember Jack McTeer? Well done, John. And it was a 6-seater. You had to go up some terrace steps. And I can remember on my first working month or so, a lady slipped down those steps and broke her ankle. So we've improved the hide, and now everything's wheelchair accessible. The Friends have been incredibly important to how the reserve has developed. And to have a support organisation getting on to 2,000 members has made the difference between the reserve being as it was and how it is now. There's nothing you look at Rye Harbour Nature Reserve that hasn't been dependent upon support from Friends of Rye Harbour Nature Reserve. So please put your hand up if you are a friend of Rye Harbour Nature Reserve. Thank you all very, very much, and it's support. So the little terns have been a focus of, you see, we did get back to birds eventually. The little terns have been a focus of management. It's what drove my predecessor, Richard Knight. He developed a lot of research on little terns around the world to see how people were trying to help this pathetic little bird that likes, building an enormous nest and laying its eggs. Can you see that in the middle of the eggs? Just there? They can see them, because that's they are a really difficult conservation challenge. And Richard Knight wrote a manual that the RSPB were able to promote and circulate, and started fencing, and when I came to the reserve I continued that. And this is almost success for little terns. This is a little chick just about to be ready to fly. And a lot of the volunteer support for the reserve was focused on the tern watch. We had volunteers out on the beach. from dawn till dusk. watching over the terns because they were nesting on the open beach where there was little protection. We were based in a caravan, and look, there's an aerial before the invention of mobile phones, where the CB grade there. And there was temporary fencing, electrified fencing put up, and this is the history of little terns at Rye Harbour. Ups and downs, a few years when they were not there at all, and then we started using decoys and sound systems before they became your everyday management tool. Just about holding on, but I wouldn't guarantee they're going to be at Rye Harbour much longer. It doesn't depend just on the management on land, it depends on the health of the sea. There's very few years when the terns have got enough small fish at the right time when they need to feed their chicks. So it's a bit of a gloomy story, and yet they're only amber listed. I don't get that at all. This is what success is. This is a chick from last year, and it was a good year for fish. And here's a good tern with sand eels, which is their favourite food. And we have no control about the fish in the sea, other than through trying to influence government decisions. So electric fencing has been the key to protecting the ground nesting birds at Rye Harbour. Trying to keep foxes and badgers away. Badgers and foxes are lovely animals, but they are not good news for ground nesting birds. And something's happened with the microphone. Testing, testing.
Testing, 1, 2.
3, 4. So the fences look ugly, and they are very expensive. And I think that's an underestimate of the cost of fencing that's protecting the birds at the moment. But it's the only reason that the nature reserve has so many birds nesting each year. And the other function of the fence is it controls the huge numbers of people and their dogs. So the visitors do not affect the ground nesting birds very much. There's very few birds nesting outside the fences these days, but I would put it, the reason for that is jointly the numbers of foxes and badgers outside the fence and the number of people and dogs. So here we are, here's 4 lovely eggs sitting in the shingle, and it's only very, very recently that I've appreciated just how special the ring plovers at Rye Harbour are. They are red listed, and this is the numbers of ring plovers nesting at Rye Harbour, but at the end there only appear to be 43 pairs in the whole of Sussex. And when you look in Kent and East Anglia, it's a species that's in crisis because of their preference for the beaches that we all want to go and walk along and take our dogs for walks along. So, yeah, ring plovers should be a priority at Rye Harbour. As should wheatear. There's a very isolated population of breeding wheatears, which is Rye Harbour and Dungeness, and probably also in France. But the story's not great. For the last 2 years, there have been no wheatears breeding at Rye Harbour, and I don't think there's any that are nested elsewhere in Sussex. They are surviving at Dungeness. There's about half a dozen pairs, I think. But when you look at the history, I do not understand how all of a sudden we've gone from 4 or 5 pairs to nothing. Really sad. So ternary pools changed a lot. When the reserve started, it was 2 separate pools and very few islands. There was some early landscaping of it before I arrived, and then I went crazy. Let's have islands everywhere. And it's been surrounded by electric fence, but that still doesn't stop the fox and badgers from occasionally getting through the fence, swimming out to the islands, and whacking out all the breeding common terns. And in those years, when there's been disaster, the terns have gone off to the Pamma Valley, nested successfully, and then trickled back. With more islands, we've also attracted sandwich terns. So the equipment to do the landscaping is fairly major and devastating. The islands were built up, the small islands were built up on work parties. Any characters you know there? There's a John Trowell there, there's Alf Simpson, this is Richard Knight in his young days. And then, work parties were slave labour. Shoveling shingle into wheelbarrows, health and safety nightmare, nobody died. I've only seen this photograph a few months ago. This came from Richard Knight. Absolutely devastating the area around the park side, but it all recovered. And then in 2012, I devastated the place in building up the islands. So the common terns are fantastic birds. I can watch them endlessly and try and get the perfect photograph, but I'm never happy. I quite like this one, except that bit of reed. I might try and edit that reed out. But seeing these chicks, in some years it seems like so much fish and so many chicks survive to fly that nothing's going to stop them. But those years seem to be getting fewer and fewer. It's been really frustrating not to have studied the fish and the breeding bird success more closely. But there were so many other things to do. These fledged young are the real measure of success. And they're really hard to count. So common terms are doing that. And we've just installed some 6 new rafts, 2 at Rye Harbour, 1 at Canberra and 3 at Falls, to try and encourage the common terns to nest in more places. The sandwich terns have been a real success. They can go and feed up to 50 kilometres and bring back a single fish. The little terns can only go a kilometre. Any further than that, it's not worth their while. But sandwich terns have foraged further, and there's been an enormous extension to the Rye Harbour. So this is how it used to look, and if you look at the colour coordinated dates at the top, matches with the arrows, that's where the coastline was in 1807, Martello Tower, where you park your cars now. Then the salt marsh developed behind the protection of the shingle that recently formed until 1946, when the road was built down to the river mouth to do the recycling shingle. That stopped the sea going in, so it became grazing land and then intensive arable until the Environment Agency bought the land and built the 4-kilometre sea defence. And then let the sea in a memorable day in 2011, just there. Okay. We'll move on. No, we've got arrows. Get the arrows. We haven't got time for the arrows. Okay. This is what the flat beach used to look like, and this was favoured nesting areas for rig plovers. We totally destroyed that. It was done by hand. The shingle went to build Dover Harbour. That's what it looked like before the sea defence project, and that's what it looks like now. We've been able to raise water levels, build loads of new islands, let the sea back in a controlled way, and this was all done on the back of a sea defence project. This makes such a difference to Rye Harbour Nature Reserve, not just for the wildlife, but for the public too. You get much better views. People were fearful it was just going to be a muddy mess, but very quickly the plants have colonised, and yeah, it's been wonderful. And one of the birds to benefit has been avocet. Their numbers have dramatically increased, and it's been entirely due to the Seedhouse project. And now lots of people can enjoy a great variety of birds from the wheelchair accessible hides. And this is an historic photo. Just by chance, on one day last year, there was Richard Knight, the warden at Rye Harbour Nature Reserve from 1977 to 84, me in the middle, as I'm handing over to Paul on the left, who's the new site manager. And I'll probably use up all my time for questions.
Excellent, Simon. We have got time for 5 minutes of questions. So, anybody got anything to propose of Barry?
Where's Herring Gold Lovers?
Go on.
You have a dream of preserving the you do have a dream. Why did you give it 20 years?
I'll repeat the question just so everybody can hear. So, Barry, if you've got a dream of what the reserve looks like in 20 years' time, what's it going to be and why does it take so long?
I have a dream that by the turn of the century, it would have all been linked up, that whole triangle. There's a gap in the middle. There's opportunities to link it up, but that's all going to take time. The other ideal would be to have fencing that is easy to look after, keeps badgers and foxes out in a larger area than fenced down, and perhaps keeps badgers in. And that would help to ensure some of these school populations continue. The big problem is the health of the sea. For the seabirds, the sea needs to be a reliable place to catch their fish every May and June. But be positive, it would land purchase acquisition agreement take a long, long time. But I'm confident that the reserve is on a sound footing as long as people keep supporting the Friends and the Sussex Wildlife Trust. It's got a much better chance of continuing into the future. But the future also holds massive rise in sea level, and then all those species are going to migrate inland. So, especially the freshwater species that pass the water, they are not going to be there in 100 years' time. The big decision for the government is how long you protect the sea defence in the way that it's being managed now. It's only got another 20 years of the management plan left. If they decide not to move that shingle, the whole Rye Bay landscape will change. It's fabulous for wildlife, but not if you own property in the lowland.
Anybody else got a question for Barry? Yes?
How do we turn all of us into environmentalists? Because what you're showing here is the result of changing sea levels.
Yes, the whole coastline is very, very mobile, and those species that depend on those habitats are adapted to move. But our culture doesn't like seeing change, so we're trying. The whole coastline is fixed now. So you've got to talk to your friends, you've got to talk to your district councillors and your county councillors and your MP, and get your views across. And I think that's the role of organisations like the SOS, the SWT and the Friends, is to try and spread the positive good news, to say what is possible. Because otherwise, I sometimes get the feeling that people are giving up, that the government isn't being imaginative enough to see what's possible. It's taking an easy 5-year option. You need a 50-year plan.
Time for one last question if anybody's got one. If not, oh, sorry, yes.
Is there any plans for public access to the new area of the budget?
So there's a question about public access to the new area. Which area in particular?
So the new one you've just been talking about in the middle.
Oh, with the island.
At Castle Water, there's only public access on one side of the pit, but you get good views of the reed bed, and you can have a lovely walk, be on your own. If you don't want to talk to anybody, that's me. Usually I don't want to talk to people. Walk out from Rye to the height of Castle Water, and any time of the year you'll have an interesting wildlife experience. And then if you've still got any time or energy, you can walk around the whole reserve from Rye town. Because, no, I'm going to stop there.
And Barry, I take it you haven't really retired. So there were Barry Yates wandering Rye Harbour for some time to come.
I'm still the star of Rye Bay.
We know that, we know. Ladies and gentlemen, the star. Good morning, everybody. How are we? Everybody happy? Yeah, everybody looking forward to the day ahead. Oh, people are waving, people are cheering. It all goes downhill from here. So, welcome to the 45th Sussex Wildlife Society annual conference. Do we still have people here who have been to every one? We do! I think that was a count of 3 hands that went up there. So for those of you who are on your first conference, you'll reach that milestone in 2068. How lovely is that? So, if you haven't been before, and for those who have and have forgotten how it works, we've got a packed programme today. We've got 2 talks before lunch. We have a lovely period of lunch when you can visit all the stalls and have a good chat and get to meet each other. Those of you who've got green dots on your badges, you're the first timers, but you probably know that. You don't have the green dots, then look for the green doctors and make them feel very welcome. After lunch, we have another speaker, we have a short break, and then we come in for our final speaker of the afternoon, and we finish about 4:15. I thought it only right to start with at least a bird photo to kick us off. How many folk have seen one of these in Sussex this year? And enjoyed it, I get the sense. I believe that one stopped the traffic on the Norfolk Bridge in Shoreham as it flew over. Hopefully pretty soon we'll have a self-sustaining population. You can count it on your New Year bird race. But magnificent things. How many people have seen... Not Barry Yates. How many people have seen Barry Yates? How many people have seen one of these? Oh, the murmur that goes up at the mention of a wax swing. Yeah, you see the Upfield ones, the Helsham ones, the Sussex ones. Gorgeous, eh? And while we're on the subject of exotic, well-dressed visitors from the north, it's time to introduce your president for the day. Last year I made the mistake of thinking that he came from Bradford, Blackburn, Burnley. And because he's a proud Yorkshireman, he put me right about that one. Usual word warning, don't talk about football to him because he is a passionate Burnley fan. That's true, isn't it? And he's quite touchy about it, but it's okay this year because they're riding high in the relegation places, aren't they? Ladies and gentlemen, your president, Mr. soon-to-be Sir Chris Corrigan.
Thank you very much, Adrian. And actually there, I think you will have seen why I left the RSPB, having had to work with Adrian 5 days a week. Too much. And I hope there's some other people in the audience who haven't seen Waxwing, because I haven't seen Waxwing, so I think that was a bit gratuitous. Anyway, well, welcome everybody to another conference. We've got 4 excellent speakers, I think, today. I'm really looking forward to them. 3 of the speakers, there's a real resonance because they're all talking about things which are really close to me or things that I've been involved with. So I'm looking forward to all of those. Welcome to all of our new members, as Adrian said, so let's make sure we give new members a big welcome. So those of you with green dots. And my colleagues who are on council and trustees, we've got the orange badges, so please do come and say hello and speak to us because we are extremely grateful for the support. In fact, we're totally dependent on the support of you members. And the only other thing today is we've got some excellent stalls, some from different partner organisations. Please do talk to people on the stalls and find out more about the things that they've got on offer. And most of all, get your cash out and buy the raffle tickets. So please do support the raffle. I have been practising the colours so that this year it's going to be so smooth. You're all skeptical now. All right, anyway, well, thank you very much. It's going to be a great conference, and I will pass back to Adrian to lead us through the day.
Lovely, thank you very much. Right, a little bit of housekeeping to start you off. Hope if you need the loo, then it's up out the back, and it's what's there's a special sign on them for you today, but they're called the staff loos. You've got a male and a female out on the main corridor. If there's any fire, then that's our main exit route, and we just scram out those doors. That's probably not the terminology that I'm meant to say for health and safety, but you get the feeling about it. And that's probably all that you need to know for today about that. So it's straight into our first speaker of the day. And those who've been to conference before will know that I normally scour the internet for some dirt on our speakers. But our first speaker, many of you will know him. You saw the name come up earlier. If the thingy works, well, there we go. Everybody know Barry? Everybody know the fact there is no dirt on him whatsoever. He's what we call an invisible on the internet. So I've had to go a little bit around the houses to find out something about Barry. And I thought the route that I'd go is actually, people know this term? Nominative determinism. This is where your name dictates what job you do. And we'll see why this relates to Barry shortly. But just to show you some examples of it. Anybody know this French weather forecaster? This is the rainy day. This is, you won't even believe this, this is actually true. He died a few years ago, but the Archbishop of Manila, anybody know his name? It's crazy, isn't it? That would be the case. And I think that nominative determinism relates to anagrams as well. And the most famous of them all is Virginia Bottomley. Most people know that, but do you know that one? I'm an evil Tory bigot. It's an actual anagram of Virginia Bottomley. I've got this one. This is real as well. This is from the British Journal of Urology, which is all about incontinence. Look it up, it's genuine. They are professors of incontinence. But it brings us on to Barry Yates. And any of you who are good at anagrams, given that this is the man who has spent his life saving the wildlife of Rye Bay, meant to be, wasn't it? Ladies and gentlemen, Barry Yates.
Sorry, I'm a bit picky about my photos. So, you've all been to Rye Harbour, haven't you? Hands up who's never been to Rye Harbour Nature Reserve. Shame on you. You can get a train, and it's only a short walk from the station. So I hope for those 2 or 3 who've never been, that I will encourage you to visit. So it's a big topic, birds at Rye Harbour Nature Reserve, and I've only got a relatively few minutes. And I'll keep a watch. So I'm not going to cover birds of Rye Harbour Nature Reserve. I'm going to concentrate on the breeding birds, because to me they are the most important things. So Rye Harbour is a very special place for birds, and we know that because it's got lots of designations, and they all mean it's very special. And don't try and make the letters of Ramsar mean anything. It's a city in Iran that many years ago decided that it was worth saving wetlands, and Rye Harbour is part of a Ramsar site. Rye Harbour is also special because it's part of a much larger special protection area. The green there is the Dungeness, Romney Marsh and Rye Bay Triple SI, and sadly there's a county boundary, and sometimes it's a barrier that people dare not cross. So there's Rye Harbour, now a nature reserve of the Sussex Wildlife Trust. You're going to count these, Chris? How many times I get the Sussex Wildlife Trust in the talk? There's also other interesting wildlife sites around, bird sites around. How many of you have never been to the Powell Valley Nature Reserve? There's a few, quite a lot more. Well, my suggestion to you is don't go at the moment because it's very muddy. And it's difficult to get to anyway. And that's where I'm now spending much more of my time, quite effective. And there we are. Who's never been to the Dungeness RSPB Reserve? 3. Adrian? There's 3 people here that haven't been. You should direct them. So there's lots of good places for birds in the general area, and that is helping to make Rye Harbour so good and the best. But Rye Harbour is a heavily modified landscape. It's been damaged by man repeatedly. Gravel extraction, military activity, chemical industry. Can you read? I'll just read this out. Recreational activity, apple farming, picture on the right, intensive sheep grazing. Is there no end to this? Invasive non-native species. I think that's it. And there are parts on the city fences. Let's not forget the city fences. So the city fences are the primary function of that piece of land, this Rye Harbour Nature Reserve. The private agency transport massive amounts of shingle to try and protect the coastline, and it seems like complete madness. But if you visit this time of year, you might encounter all of the trucks, and it's done to keep the pet sea wall covered in shingle, to make it strong, and it keeps the harbour of Rye open for navigation. Don't worry, we're going to get some birds soon. So there's the nature reserve. The southern part is all about saltwater habitats, and the northern section is all about freshwater habitats. And if we were to try and summarise it in just a few words, that's what Rye Harbour Nature Reserve is. It's been in existence for more than 50 years. It's the size of 600 football pitches. It's got a lot of species, and many of those species have got a conservation status. Some of them are birds. If you look down the bottom, the estimate for visitors is 400,000, which to me is a staggering number. But most of them are only only one tiny section of it, and you can go on a walk and be away from people, especially if the weather's good right. And the nature reserve was set up as a local nature reserve, and it has a